What I do, folks, it is your host, Sensei, on Popcorn and Pork Rinds YouTube channel. So today is a Storytime Tuesday. We do have the continuation. This story was written a long time ago, and I'm just now kind of getting around to it. But I'm going to do something different. And I'm going to do something that I kind of was doing before, doing it raw and uncut, less animations and all that other, I'm going to leave everything in. Every single thing. But I want to touch on a few things. Is you don't have to write this much. And I usually do it where the writer is anonymous. In this case, I'm going to say who it is because they kind of put themselves out there a long time ago. And I like, hey, man, you might discourage some people not to write, but fun times nerd, right? He wrote all of this. It's very long. And I'm going to read it raw and uncut. So that means I'm going to be messing up left and right. I have not proofread half of it. And it's just going to be one of those things moving forward. You might hear some clicking and some fumbling because, I'm going to sit here and just read it directly. And this is the continuation of the last story time. This is episode 8, I believe. And what we're going to do is we're going to move into it now. Okay. So let's click over here, and it's called It's Time to Go, part 1 of 3. Oh, man. It is very, very, very long. All right. Sep, wake the heck up, Sep. Everything was blurry as Sep opened his eyes slowly. We have to go, Galazelia demanded. What? What happened? Sep asked. You hit your head on the damn stalactite. Your backpack went flying and a jeweler's hammer flew out and hit that rock over there. It made a loud noise. We aren't safe. What do you mean? We defeated the Spellweaver. The Spellweaver, that was the last story. You might have to go back and revisit all of this stuff. But anyways, let's continue. Sep said as Galazelia grabs him by the arm and pulled him, but Sep didn't budge. What are you on about, Sep? There was no Spellweaver. We are in the deepest depths of the cavern. It's pantheons and It's pantheons and cave-dwelling beasts we have to worry about here, she explains. No, we just got done fighting a Spellweaver in that cottage. You caught me as I fell from the sky. I used almost all my power to destroy the Spellweaver. It was going to destroy the townspeople, Sep recalls. I don't know what you're talking about. But we have to go. This can wait. Just then a loud snarl echoed through the caves. We have to go, Galazelia demands in a hash tone while yanking harder on Sep's arm. I have to grab my backpack, Sep said as he hastily ran to collect his bag and all the belongings that fell out of it. As Sep reached for the golden hammer, he remembered the blacksmith telling him he had to use that hammer to hear for an ore. You said this made a loud noise, didn't you? Sep asked Galazelia. Yes, now move your butt. We have to go, she said in an annoyed tone. Sep picked up the hammer and hit it against the rock it was laying in front of him. A loud, deep gong echoed throughout the cave, followed by a hair-raising, high-pitched screech echo. See, I'm messing up already. Now we're going to have to reread that. Sep picked up the hammer and hit it against the rock it was laying in front of. A loud, deep gong echoed throughout the cave, followed by a hair-raising, high-pitched screech echoing back from the other direction. What the hell are you doing? I knew you had a death wish. Let's go! Galazelia screamed out as the whole cavern dwelling... Cavern? I don't know why I read it like that. Screamed out as the whole cavern dwelling started shaking and loud stomps came closer. Sep grabbed a rock and put it in his bag along with the hammer and began to run behind Galazelia. As they heard the terrifying noises come closer, they darted down a brick hallway with arched ceilings and a loose stone pathway. What's this place? Sep asked. The answer to our problems, Galazelia replied as she darted around a corner. Sep followed after her, his mind filled with so many questions. He could hear the noises getting closer. But where were they going? As he rounded the corner, he felt his whole body slide on the gravel path, scraping his palm. Sepp continued to run up the slanted gravel hall behind Galazelia as his palm bled with no idea where they were going. He found it very strange. There was a man-made structure hidden so far down inside this cave, but continued upward and onward. "Through here," Galazelia said, with a hashed but demanding voice as she started squeezing herself inside a small crack in the wall. Sepp heard come from behind him as he approached the crack. Sepp turned around to squeeze in the hole. As Sepp looked up, he could see what had to be an 8-foot-tall creature with a wolf-like head and alligator-like body, drool coming out of his mouth, dripping from 8-inch long sharp fangs. As it ran up the hill-like corridor, Sepp could feel his heart pounding as the creature got closer. Sepp squeezed through the hole as fast as he could, but just as he got almost his whole body in the crack, he felt a warm liquid covering his arm. "Get me out of here," Sepp screams, looking over to see inside of a mouth larger than his body, wide open, getting ready to bite his arm off. Galazelia grabbed Sepp's arm and pulled him through the crack. Sepp cried out in pain as his already bloody palm pushed on the inside of the wall. Snap, snap. They heard come from the other side of the wall. Sepp shook the drool off his arm and could feel his heart beating like a drum. "So you defeated a spellweaver, did you?" Galazelia said as she chuckled. What a beach. That wasn't typed, but she acting like one. "I almost lost my hand," Sepp yelled back while trying to catch his breath. Sepp looked up from his arm, and he could see they were no longer in the cave, but rather deep in the heart of the wandering forest Sepp had originally set foot in. "Relax, big boy. I think I know what's going on. Now quit making so much noise," Galazelia said as she started walking down a moonlit path filled with dead trees and rusty cages that hang from them. As they came to a clearing, Sepp realized where they were. He found himself looking at a large hollowed-out chunk of granite in the middle of the clearing. "This was the vision, wasn't it?" Galazelia calmly asked. "Yes, but it looked so different," Sepp said softly. His head felt like it was spinning. "That wasn't you. That was me and your father," Galazelia said as her eyes slowly turned towards the ground. She continued, "We fought a spellweaver here. We thought we had won. Little did we know that the spellweaver was a very clever one. We won the fight, but your father unfortunately didn't survive that war." "That can't be true," Sepp angrily shouted. "It is," Galazelia said. "No, I watched a demon kill my parents. Who are you?" Sepp screamed with a worried tone in his voice. "I was there that night, Sepp," Galazelia screamed. "I was there that night," Galazelia repeated with a softer tone as she started sobbing. "What do you mean?" Sepp asked as he tried to remember how he knew Galazelia. "I was the one that saved you, Sepp. Just like I'm saving you now." As Sepp heard the words leave Galazelia's mouth, he saw a painful flashback of that night in his mind. He saw his parents getting brutally attacked. He remembered all the blood. As he revealed that night, he began to cry, but it was clear as day. There was a loud noise that left the voice of the demon followed by a silence. Then there was Galazelia picking him up. But why did it look like Galazelia hadn't aged? "It all started right there," Galazelia said, as she walked inside of a hollowed-out chunk of granite. Sepp followed behind, more confused, now than ever. "I didn't think you would remember me," Galazelia said. "I don't think I could ever forget that night," Sepp said as a tear streamed down his face. Didn't I just have a mental breakdown about my father and now I'm reading this? Yep. Sepp's stomach began to grumble. If that was a flashback, though, he must have eaten not even an hour ago. How could he have been this hungry already? "Why am I so hungry?" Sepp whispered under his breath as he swung his bag onto the ground. "It's probably because you've been down here for almost 2 days now." When's the last time you ate?" Galazelia replied. "I just ate an hour ago." "What are you talking about?" Sepp said, more confused now than ever. Time moves differently in the forest since the Pantheons took over. The Pantheons attack the mind. It would be my guess that visions was their doing, Galazelia said as she walked around the dim-lit room. Sepp began to eat half of what was left of his food, despite Despite wanting to save on rations, it was clear to him that he was going to need his strength. He wasn't nearly as strong as he was in the vision, and these caves clearly had some terrifying creatures lurking around him. I know I'm kind of reading it kind of weird. Normally what I would do is I would break it down, read it I would read it a couple of times, and then get the tone right, and then I would read it, so on and so forth. But anyways, yeah, if you're wondering, like, why is he reading it like that? Well, that's why, because it's raw and uncut. We have a long way to go, so I should stop doing that. Okay, here we go. Look here, Galizelia said with excitement as she looked down a silver ring with a flower made of black jewels on it. Grab it, Galizelia said. Sep didn't know if he could trust Galizelia after all. After all, what if Galizelia was a pantheon? Sep had never seen one before, but if that was the case, why would Galizelia tell him about himself in the first place? Sep timidly grabbed the ring off the ground when he picked it up and put it in his hand. The blood from his palm touched the ring, and the flower on it began to emit a glowing purple light. I do believe he wrote this in a manner of D&D and Magic the Gathering. I think this is Black Lotus. All right. Galizelia spoke up. That belonged to your father. He must have lost it when he fought the Spellweaver. What is it? Sep asked. It's called a Black Lotus ring. See what I tell you. And it bonds with its user when it makes contact with the user's blood. They used to be easier to find, but were outlawed years ago due to the nature of their magic. Yeah, in Magic the Gathering, Black Lotus is banned across the board, if y'all didn't know. These rings were forged using dark magic in a time when demons, dragons, and royal assassins, hell yeah, royal assassin, roamed free. That was my favorite card. Around the elves, goblins, and humans, gambling and fighting. Are we talking about, nah. Because when Magic the Gathering first came out, see, didn't I say that I was going to do this? Anyways, anti. Gambling and fighting had taken over the plains. As far as I could see, even children were anteing, I was right, up their toys in attempts to win one of those precious historical artifacts. Galizelia took a long pause. A look of shame and sorrow hung upon Galizelia's face as she took a deep sigh and continued. These rings are just one of many outlawed historical artifacts. They were worth unfathomable riches nowadays. Keep it well hidden. It will come in handy when the time is right. The ring gives you much, much more mana. You hear the phone fucking ringing now? God damn it. Yeah, raw and uncut. For your spells, then you normally could be able to use. But once... I'm leaving it. I'm not editing this out. But once you use it, it will drain all of your magic for quite some time. So use it wisely. Sep looked down at the ring. Inside there was Sep looked down at the ring. Inside there was an engraving. Everyone thinks of changing the world, but the real power lays in changing yourself. Ooh. The engraving was straight out of his father's handbook on things he felt made you a good man. It reminded Sep of stories his father told him about always doing the right thing, even when the world around us fell short, as it often did. Knowing now just how bad things were back then, it makes a lot of sense to why his father was the way he was. Things now seem much better, but there was always this sense of darkness Sep felt in the world. It was as if things didn't actually get better. They just kind of changed to appear better to the majority. Why do you look like you haven't aged if that was my father? Sep asked Galizelia. Galizelia pointed to a bag of herbs that lay next to where Sep had grabbed the ring from. That bag of herbs is a blend known as herbs of clear vision. If you chew them, you will see things as they are, Sep. I know nothing I tell you can convince you I am who I claim to be, but those herbs will show you the truth, and time will move like normal for you, which will protect you from the beasts outside, seeing they are under the spell of the pantheons and the forest as well. Galizelia said with a sincere but sad tone in her voice. How am I to believe you? How do I know I won't eat those herbs and become sick? How do I know you aren't one of the pantheons? Sep demanded answers from Galizelia. Galizelia sighed and took a deep breath. I cannot convince you through my words, but I would like you to trust me based on my actions, Sep. I know this is all so confusing for you, But you need to rest and get out of this forest. It's not safe here, and you'll need your strength to leave here safely, Galazeli explained. So let's say I take your word and I chew those herbs up. How do I know they're even working? Sep asked. We will make a tea, Sep. It will make the herb's effect last much longer. We have much to discuss. Brewing the tea will give us enough time to do just that, Galazeli said as she bent down to sit in front of a fireplace that was at the far wall. Sep walked over to join Galazeli. He grabbed some sticks that were in a small pile besides the fireplace, threw them into it, and cast a small flame from his finger to light it. Galazeli began to speak as Sep began to brew the tea. So a long time ago, this wandering forest used to be a place of worship and celebration. We called it the Wandering Forest because you could just wander for hours. Galazeli smiled as the words left her mouth. Sep sat down as Galazeli began to speak again. But then, she said, her smile quickly vanished, just as it had appeared. But then it became known as the Wandering Forest because you could get lost in here, wandering for days in circles. The Pantheons own this forest now, but it all started with the Spellweavers. The Spellweavers released beasts into these forests that took it over. Before that, we could gather at the stone fire pit. You probably passed it on your way here. It is where we came to feast. Call to our gods and tell stories of battles long past. The Spellweavers released beasts into the forest through and scared away the surrounding townspeople. They then came in and took claim of the land, trapping the pixies and fairies of this forest in cages and stealing their magic for themselves. Me and your father came out here to take care of the problem. The goal was to destroy the Dreamweavers. Little did we know, the one we encountered already was aware of our comings and goings. We knew your father was no ordinary elf, and that I had the vast knowledge of these forests and the herbs around it. He didn't expect to win, so he had placed a curse that would only affect the ones that were there to witness his defeat. Galazelia took a deep breath as she looked down at the floor and continued. We thought we had done it. We thought we had finished off the last Spellweaver. Little did we know nature was going to do what nature always has done. It adapted. With each Spellweaver we defeated, we gave a soul to the heretic gods. Those oath breakers were taking the Spellweaver souls and dumping them into the resting bodies of the ancient pantheons. When we had defeated the last one, not only were we cursed to die at the hand of one of the heretic's minions, but we had just unleashed an even darker magic upon the world. Right now, the pantheons only control these forests, but the more souls they collect from people like you that get lost out here, the stronger they will get. It's only a matter of time before they take over more land. Why aren't you dead then? Sep demanded as an answer. He was growing sick of these games. All will be clear very soon, Sep. I think your tea is ready, Galazelia said, smiling back at Sep. I'm not drinking anything until I get answers, Sep said as he stood up, stomping his foot on the ground. Sep, even if I told you, you would not believe me. The herbs will make everything clear. You have to understand that is the nature of the Pantheon's magic. They, just like the Dreamweavers, mess with your mind. They drive you insane and will have you losing track of time and space, and even your sense of sanity. Please, trust me. I have done nothing to make you not trust me, Galazelia pleaded with Sep. Sep thought about it, and it is true, Galazelia had done nothing but help him. He took a deep breath and walked over to the pot of tea. As he started drinking it, Galazelia slowly started becoming more and more transparent. Make sure to get in a long rest before leaving and bring the herbs with you. Leaving and bringing the herbs. I guess it should say rest of the herbs with you in case you need them. He could hear Galazelia say as she faded away into nothing. Oh, there's more. Yeah, I told you guys, it is very long. And as I mentioned before, if you got this far, you don't have to, like normally we want to keep it short so that way people will come in and not feel discouraged. But this is good. And that's why I'm reading it. And it's been there so long. So let's get to the next part. It's called Clear Vision. Seb began thinking to himself about everything that had happened. He'd never once seen Galazelia touch anything other than him outside of the vision he had. Oh, I want to say this. I have not read any of this, so we're reading this together for the very first time. All right. He began wondering as this Galazelia ghost somehow helping him through this adventure all along. He took Galazelia's advice and started setting up for a long rest inside this hollowed out granite stone. Hoping his gut was right about her and all she had told him, he walked over to the corner of the room and grabbed what appeared to be a velvet purple blanket with a gold embroidered floral pattern stitched into its border. Taking his bag and sack of water off his back, he sat down and propped the bag up in the corner to serve as a pillow. Sepp took a large swig of his water and sack laid his head down, pulling the velvet cloth over his body as he got ready to take a long rest. Sepp closed his eyes and began to drift off. "Hey you," a familiar voice cried out. "Yes, you," he heard the loud voice bellow out. Sepp would know this voice anywhere. It was the blacksmith. Had the dwarf come to save him? Sepp opened his eyes, but to his surprise, the face he seen was a much younger face than he was expecting to see. "Get off your lazy bum, we have work to do," the dwarf told him. "Who are you?" Sepp asked. "My name is Julio. You've only known me for years. Are you sure you're ready to go hunt these spellweavers?" the dwarf said with a chuckle. "What do you mean?" Sepp asked. "Look, either we are doing this thing or we aren't. I didn't spend all this time making this special armor at Galazelia's request for nothing." Sepp realized he was in an actual bed. This must have been another memory of Sepp's father. Sepp figured it's the best to play along to better understand what actually happened. "I'm just a little groggy from the sleep. I apologize. Let me get some coffee in me and we will be ready to go," Sepp replied. He remembered his father always being up very early in the morning with his daily coffee in hand to start every day. Did you write this because of me? Because I felt like I told you this about my dad, because he did this. If so, thank you. "Get your coffee and meet me downstairs. You might be a bastard child." God damn. "But we are going to prove to these people you are worthy of being their king. This kingdom can't survive if there's no heir to the throne. No heir to the throne. Not with these spellweavers lurking in the nearby forest," Julio explained as he turned around and began to leave the room. Sepp looked outside the window by his bedside. He could see the blacksmith's barn. It was clear to him he was inside the blacksmith's house. Sepp got up from his bed and seen a wooden figure standing by the door. It had on a suit of black armor engraved with silver sigils and trimmed with a light violet material. It was the same material Sepp was in the forest to find. Around the trim was a gold floral pattern similar to the blanket Sepp had just used to lay down with. Sepp got up to put the armor on and prepare for whatever was to come. As he made his way downstairs, he followed the smell of coffee to the kitchen. "Hey, hot stuff, you miss me?" Sepp heard. As he rounded the corner, he could see it was Galazelia. She winked at him as he poured himself a cup of coffee. "Julio might have to sit this one out, just in case anything happens." "It's the last one, you think? You're up for it?" she said, teasingly. "I think I can handle a spellweaver," Sepp replied, remembering how easily his father seemed to have defeated it in his vision. "Don't get too cocky. We've had a good run, but this spellweaver is the strongest one we have ever faced. I managed to locate its general location, but it's not really what I would call a safe journey. Either we can go through the caves that are filled with the beast, or we can go the long route and avoid running into that. But we risk running into multiple thieves and other various traps that could waste precious time and resources," Galazelia explained. "We will play it by ear," Sepp replied, having no idea what they were in store for. Galazelia walked into the living room of the blacksmith's house, and Sepp followed. As they walked into the room, Sepp could see a lit fireplace with paintings of 3 of them hanging over it. "Here, don't forget your whisper silk cloak," Julio said. Galazelia smiled as she began to joke. Julio may be a little rough around the edges, but he's such a great blacksmith. He can even sew. Oh, he can even sell. She laughed as the words left her mouth. I see no shame in mastering one's craft to the fullest, Julio said, puffing out his chest as he threw the cloak to Sepp. Sepp looked down at the cloak. It was the same one he currently wrapped up in while he slept. This cloak is weaved with magical fibers, similar to the trim on your armor. The fibers are sourced from a very rare spider that can actually break down and eat the ore from which your armor is trimmed. The cloak is designed not only to help you hide, but it possesses the ability to render enemies' blocks useless, Julio explained. As they began to walk out the front door, Sepp found himself frozen in fear as he heard my goodness. As they began to walk out the front door, Sepp found himself frozen in fear as he heard an all too familiar noise. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Suddenly, Sepp jolted awake. Those noises weren't part of the vision. The beast was outside the granite walls. Sepp looked down at the whisper silk cloak he now clutched in his hands. Julio had told him this would help him hide, but how? Sepp asked himself as he looked out the doorway. The sunlight hit him dead in the... Oh my goodness. Sepp asked himself as he looked out the doorway. The sunlight hit him dead in the eyes, blinding him momentarily. When Sepp's vision cleared, he noticed the beast seemed to be much slower than he was when he was under the Pantheon spell. This must have been what Galazelia meant when she said the herbs would help protect him. Sepp was on a different timeline than these beasts, which meant he was faster than them. Now he had a cloak that would help him hide, if he could just figure out how to use it. Sepp heard everything get eerily quiet. He went to go pop his head back out, only to open up the door to a giant eye staring back at him. Sepp thought quickly and poked the eye with his knife. The beast stumbled backwards. A loud screeching noise came out of his mouth. Sepp ran back to grab his things, including the new cloak, and darted out the door as fast as he could, in the direction he remembered Galazelia going after the Spellweaver had been destroyed in the vision he had back in the caves. As Sepp looked back, he seen the cave-dwelling beast was gaining its balance and had locked eyes with him. Sepp knew as long as he could see things for as they were, he would have an advantage on the beast. Sepp took off in a sprint, looking for any sign of a way out of here. As he ran through the forest, he heard a whispering voice yell out, "Wrap it around you." It sounded like Galazelia's voice. "Wrap it around you!" What did that mean? Sepp wondered as he ran. The stomping sounded like it was speeding up, and even more so than it was when he was under the spell of the Pantheon. What was happening? Were the herbs wearing off? Sepp grabbed a large pinch of herbs and put them in his mouth and began to chew down as hard and fast as he could, but nothing was happening. The beast continued to make ground on Sepp. If only he knew how this cloak worked. Why did that dream have to end so abruptly? Sepp thought to himself, becoming more frustrated as the beast came within yards of him. In a quick act of desperation, Sepp jumped into nearby bushes and wrapped the cloak around him. It was a long shot, but maybe Galazelia was somehow still helping him. He had to trust his gut, even though at this point he had no idea if he would ever get out of these woods or if his soul would be lost to the Pantheons forever. The beast approached the bushes and sniffed around the ground. Sepp heard, merely inches away from his head. The sound was deafening. His heart felt like it could jump out of his body. He hugged the cloak even tighter and ducked as far down to the ground as he could. All the stories he had heard about this place in his youth, he could never have imagined they were all true, and to think now he was stuck in the middle of one of the horror stories. It felt as though he would never get out, as Sepp contemplated his life choices that led him to this inevitable end. Suddenly, he could hear the sound of the beast's feet turn around and start walking in the other direction. "It's safe now," Galazelia's voice whispered through the wind. Sepp slowly sat up, took the cloak off his back, wrapped it around his neck, and looked around to see if the coast was clear. There didn't appear to be anything around for miles. Sepp chewed on some more of the herbs to clear Sepp chewed on some of the herbs of clear vision to make sure he wasn't under the Pantheon spell. After confirming the coast was clear, Sepp began to walk with caution in the direction that seemed the most familiar to him. He imagined what it was like in the forest before the spellweavers came to it. There were so many dead trees. It had to have been so beautifully green and lush. Sepp looked down at his stomach as it began to grumble. He looked up and could see the fire pit in front of him when he entered. He couldn't have been more than 2 hours away from the entrance, and there was still plenty of daylight left. Sepp decided to sit down and eat the rest of his food. As he sifted through his bag, he thought it might not be a bad idea to put the Black Lotus ring on. Best to be prepared, he thought to himself. After a little while of admiring the decorative carvings while he enjoyed a short rest, he began down the path. Sepp knew where he was now. This shouldn't be that hard. He hadn't had a problem on his way in. "Hey, you!" a voice shouted from about 15 yards in front of Sepp. "Yeah, you! Stop right there!" Sepp heard coming from the voice of a small barefooted man in a funky-looking tall pointed hat. He had small rounded glasses, a large nose, and a beard so long he could have tripped over it. "Who are you to tell me to stop?" Sepp said confidently with his chest puffed out. "I'm the gnome in the know, and it's time for you to..." I'm going to reread this because I see where it's going. "Who are you to tell me to stop?" Sepp said confidently with his chest puffed out. "I'm the gnome in the know, and it's time for you to go. Your friends are going in the wrong direction, so I'm here to provide some correction," the gnome said. "I'm going to the blacksmith's now, move funny gnome. I want to go home," Sepp said in an almost joking tone. This gnome was out of his mind if he thought he was going to get him to turn around when he only 40 minutes from the exit. "The path is not as it seems. Keep down it and you'll hear screams. This path is much longer than it appears. I'm trying to save you from Pantheon's fears," the gnome said as he got closer to Sepp. The gnome reached in his pocket as he got closer to Sepp and pulled his hand out in a fist. Sepp readied his knife, preparing for battle. The gnome opened his hand to begin to speak. "Come and look down into my palm." He then blew his hand and rainbow shimmering powder hit that wasn't okay. "Come and look down into my palm." He then blew in his hand and rainbow shimmering powder hit Sepp in the face. The powder made Sepp dizzy. What's going on?" Sepp slurred his words as he felt his body falling back. "And truth will hit you like a bomb." Or should I reread it because it's the gnome's part? "And truth will hit you like a bomb," the gnome said with a chuckle. Sepp's body collapsed and everything went black. Yeah, so y'all got to hear this read raw and uncut, and it is very long, and I like it. But Storytime is a story that I continued, and you, the listener, listens, and you continue the story, if you don't already know. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for being here this long. Thank you. I was about to say his real name. Thank you, Fun Times Nerd, for doing this. And I'm excited where this is going to go. I do believe he said that he has another part of this, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out, and then we'll go from there. And if he doesn't have another part, well, it'll be open for someone to send me an email with your continuation of this story. It will be episode 9. And then I'll read it on the channel, raw and uncut and anonymous. Thank you for tuning in to Popcorn and Pork Rind Storytime. Be well. Goodbye.